Hello humans, welcome to the M Word, the Manx Sports podcast, brought to you by Martin, that's me.
And Matt.
That's him, pointing down there. Hello Matthew.
All right. Weird seeing you over this.
Yeah, so this is our first ever visual episode as well. We're joined by Chris, for those on YouTube watching this. Chris Mitchell joined us. Hi Chris. How
you doing?
Good, thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much for inviting me along. Really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. First of all, just a quick shout out to our sponsor, billboards.im. They are digital advertising. You'll find them around town. They do what it says on the tin, and I'd like to thank those guys for, again, continuing to support and sponsor the podcast. It's much appreciated from those guys. So that's billboards.im. Drop those guys a quick line. So Matt, we'll crack on. Intro, recognise the voice? No? Okay.
No. No, not rely on that one.
So you should, because there's someone we've played before, and that's Inky Johnson. If you Google him or find him on YouTube, he's an American footballer that was injured playing in college football, just about to start in the NFL career. Got injured and lost, or basically became disabled and lost all feeling down his left arm. He does a lot of motivational chats now around using that as his kind of badge of honour to his adversity, really, to against, well, in the situation he's in, and really it ties in, obviously, super nice with our guest today, Chris. And we'll dig into why that's the case in due course. But as I say, or we said earlier, welcome, Chris. And let's plough in, if that's all right, with the most important question of the day, which is whether you're a come over Manx or Manx is the hills.
I'm ashamed to say I'm a come over. I was brought to the Isle of Man with my mum and dad back in 1988. I was 16 years old. And my dad got a job on the Isle of Man, and I was too young to stay put where we were. We were living in Rugeley at the time, and so I came over with my mum and dad, as I say, 16, and to the Isle of Man. Didn't know too much about the place, to be honest. Apart from I knew a lot about the TT because I was already very keen on motorcycles at the time, but yeah. I'm afraid to say I'm a come over and a stopover.
We'll definitely adopt you for those who haven't obviously got the visual aspects. Chris has got the helmet he raced in front of him there with the three legs of man. So adopted Manx anyway, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy with that.
So you mentioned there you were brought up in a place I've never heard of. Where's that in the UK? For my poor geography.
So I was born in Lancashire. And lived in a place called Eccleston, which is near Chorley and Leyland, up until I was about 11 years old. And then my dad, sort of with his work, he was like a regional manager at Tesco's, and he used to have to move around quite a lot. So I did get moved a couple of times. So we went from Lancashire to Nottinghamshire, and then we moved again to Kings Bromley, which is near Rugeley in Staffordshire. And
did you do much sports when you were sort of moving around at that age?
I never really did do a lot of sports, to be honest. I always felt like I hadn't quite found exactly what it was that I wanted to do with sports. You know, I wasn't really keen on football. I'm still not really big on football now, and just I never really found that thing that I really wanted to do. But I did always have this underlying wish to own my own motorcycle, and I just loved bikes. I was always out on my push bike, and it was into BMX. It was back in the 80s, so BMX was the big thing at the time, and just riding around with my mates, and just if I could be out on my bike, then that was me happy, basically.
And what age did you first get on a motorbike?
I was probably about 7 or 8, and my cousin, his dad used to take him out motocrossing, and I used to sort of get to go out with them occasionally at weekends, and basically it was my uncle Tony. He taught me how to ride this motocross bike. And I was absolutely in love with it, loved it. I was never allowed my own bike. So my mum and dad were weren't keen on it. So I didn't actually get my own motorbike till I was 16. I'd started working part-time when I was 14, still at school, and just saved up like mad for a couple of years, and then was eventually able to buy my own little 50cc. And
were you doing any racing there, or is that just going out and enjoying doing trails sort of thing?
Yeah, that was just riding for fun. I never got into racing until much later on, until after my accident actually. Yeah, it was just for fun. But it was just all I ever thought about really. I just absolutely loved motorbikes. I was mad on them.
So 16, you come to the island. That's, like you say, because you can save your own money. You can basically make your own choices at that age. It was, I've saved my money, I'm getting a motorbike, and away.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, sadly, I had to sort of sell my motorbike just before we moved over, and started to. I mean, at the time, 16, you could drive on the Isle of Man as a learner. Not sure what the age is now, but in the UK it was 17. So that was like a bonus. You know, I could suddenly start driving a car, and that was kind of the route I went. I started to learn to drive and eventually pass my test, and sort of bought my own car, which is, you know, that kind of put the motorbike thing to sleep for a while, whilst I sort of.
That boy racer car you souped up.
Yeah, it was the old, the little Fiesta 1.1 Popular Plus with, you know, a massive stereo in it, huge speakers.
Stereo worth more than the car.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Driving around with the Pet Shop Boys and whatever else blaring out. Yeah,
I wouldn't admit that to the people. I wouldn't. In a West End town. Not that I know the songs, by the way. It's just something I read earlier on the internet.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting back into bikes? Because I know when we were chatting earlier, you mentioned about track days and sort of that development into doing track days. Yeah,
I mean, even though I had my own car, I never sort of never lost this, you know, drive to get back on the bike sort of thing. So it's probably in my mid-20s, I think it was, and I borrowed a bike off a friend. He'd got a little 125, and I borrowed his bike and basically went and took my test on it. Managed to pass my test, and bought a little 400, little CBR 400, little pocket rocket thing, and which was a lovely, really good bike. But I mean, being 6 foot tall, it was on a little bit on the small side for me. And I think after about 6 months of riding this 400, I think I decided that one, I'd like a bit more power, and two, I think I needed a bit of a bigger bike as well, just for comfort, sort of comfort side of things. So yeah, I ended up moving up to a 600 then, bought a little ZX6, which was the sort of 600 at the time, back in the mid-90s, I think it was. And just sort of, you know, used to meet up with mates regularly at weekends or in the evenings, and we go out and do what many people do, you know, ride around the Holy Grail, the greatest road circuit in the world is a TT course. So to be able to ride, you know, for pleasure and you know, in my spare time on the TT course was just absolutely, you know, loved it. Yeah. You know, couldn't get enough of it basically. So yeah, we just used to razz around at the weekends, and
but again, no hankering to race at this stage.
I think I always thought myself as being, you know, pretty handy, pretty good rider. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought, you know, I mean, if I start racing, I'm going to be this like, and maybe I just thought I wouldn't be good enough, or just, you know, starting off at the bottom, and plus budget as well. You know, this money side of things. Like at that point, I'd already met my wife at the time. We bought a house, so we were quite young and had a mortgage and stuff. So money wasn't like, you know, racing's a very expensive hobby, and I guess I just thought I'll just stick to riding around on you know, with my friends on the public road sort of thing.
On the engine and changing up things. So when you went from 400 to 600 there, in general, do you notice a big difference when you go up on the engine sizes? Is it something that you can just go, maybe not all the way to 1,000, but when you increase, is there a kind of learning curve in that sense to get a feel and a handle, or is it you can just kind of just jump up and there's not, you know, it's
no, there's a definite step up, and you have to really respect the increased power in the bike, and you just got to basically take your time and build your confidence with the bike, and sometimes takes a little bit of time just to get used to, get comfortable on the bike. It was a bigger bike physically as well as the engine size, but it took a little bit of getting used to, but it wasn't uncontrollable, if you like. I enjoyed it, if I'm honest. The extra power was one of the things I was looking for. But definitely you've got to respect it, especially around here, around these roads.
I always find, like, again, you watch the Manx or the TT where they're jumping between bikes. They get off a super bike and they get on a 600, and immediately the braking points change, the tipping points change, and to be able to just just shows what master skill to be able to do that and lap immediately on the next bike at the maximum they can lap on that bike. That ability to, it's like jumping in for us jumping in a Ferrari the next day compared to their
and it's
taking a long time to get used to the control.
It's easier to jump from a bigger bike to a smaller bike because you've got less power, but so if you go the other way, then you've got to respect it. Definitely, it's easy. So
it's like almost like a margin of error then, isn't it? Because you're going down, you've kind of, because everything's a bit slower, quote unquote.
That's right.
You've got a bit more room for error.
It feels easier to ride all of a sudden.
Interesting.
But
so were you doing track days as well then? Did you start going away and doing track days?
I did start at that point. The group of friends that I used to hang around with, we started looking into going away and doing some track days. I can remember one particular time we went and rode up in Scotland on our bikes, me and my mate Mark, and we went up there and met my brother Simon, and we took in Knockhill, the track up there, which is basically like a little short circuit on the top of Snaefell. It's almost got its own weather system and everything. So that was, I think that was the first track day I ever did, but immediately just loved it. It was I guess I'm an adrenaline junkie, I suppose, and it was straight away. It was exactly what I was looking for. It was albeit in a controlled sort of situation, but you're suddenly able to ride much harder and a bit more more aggressive and start to learn how to handle a bike at even greater speeds than you can on public roads, sort of thing. I did a Knockhill and did Alton Park as well. That's my favourite circuit, Alton Park in Cheshire. It was just.
So at this point, kind of coming to around to I guess to your 30s.
Yeah.
I suppose in many ways, sports, competitive-wise, isn't really on the horizon. And then I guess that time in 2001 that put you on a different path ultimately, and the accident.
Yeah, I mean, so in 2000 it was, I traded up to another bike. I went from a 600 to a 1000cc Yamaha R1, which at the time was, the bike to have. It was the bike Dave Jeffries was smashing lap records on and doing amazing things around the Isle of Man on, and that was like the the pinnacle, if you like, of motorcycles to own. So I managed to bought myself this Yamaha R1, which I rode for a good year. It was the following year, which was the 2001, the year of no TT, with the foot and mouth thing that was going on. So they cancelled the racing, but it was still a bit of a festival, and people were still came over to sort of take part in what was going on around the island. It was actually Mad Sunday, embarrassingly. for a local. Yeah, I'd gone out really early in the morning. I'd actually just finished work for a week. I was working at the Isle of Man Creameries at the time, and I'd been working night shifts all week, and then I got to the weekend, and that was me. Then I sort of finished for the week. I was on holiday. It was, although it wasn't TT as in the racing, but it was still a festival. And yeah, Mad Sunday, I'd gone out really early, sort of planned to meet up with a group of mates, and we were sort of going to go around the island and on our motorbikes and see what was going on. And obviously, being Mad Sunday, you've got to get out and do at least, you know, a handful of laps. That's just kind of what we used to do. So yeah, we'd all met up and had some breakfast in Parliament Square in Ramsey. I think I had a bacon roll and a cup of coffee from the Total petrol station or something like that. And yeah, we just decided to crack on and go and ride over the mountain, just like we always did. You know, we've done it thousands of times. So off we set and started to climb up the mountain through the hairpin. You know, all fine. I actually was at the front of the group of lads that we were riding with. Went round the gooseneck. It was a one way. It was on one way on the mountain, so there was no cars coming the other way or anything. And yeah, just took the next couple of corners as I always did, and cranked the bike from left to right to go through Joey's the 26th milestone. And I still don't exactly know what happened, but maybe I was on a different line. Maybe it was because we were able to use both sides of the road, or maybe I was going a little bit quicker than what I normally did. But for whatever reason, I sort of lost. I think the back end of the bike came out and slid round on me, which pushed me out wide, and I ended up lost control, pretty fast, high speed, and hit the banking on the outside of the corner. And it was, as I say, it was the foot and mouth, so there was a lot of barriers up and stuff like that. And I think I ended up collecting some of these barriers that were up at the side of the road. I mean, I was pretty much knocked out straight away, so I don't really remember exactly what happened. And my next sort of memory is just this weird, eerie silence. Suddenly it was just dead quiet, and I couldn't figure out why. I was just looking at the road. I was coming around from being unconscious, face down, looking straight at the tarmac, and my friend was just sort of shouting at me and trying to kind of bring me around. Sort of my memory of it is a bit goes, it's not totally clear, but what I certainly remember is straight immediately there was this sense of enormous pain, which was sort of radiating from my neck all the way down into my hand of my left arm. I started to sort of try and come around and move a bit, and immediately it was obvious that my left arm just wasn't responding to me trying to move it. So things didn't, it seemed fairly serious. It was. And the next thing, in and out of consciousness, I was sort of being put into an ambulance, and the siren was going, and we shot over to Nobles in Douglas. And it was, with it being the festival, they brought over quite a lot of specialist sort of doctors and medics, who were sort of waiting for this influx of injured motorcyclists. And almost straight away, this one particular doctor, he sort of, I think he immediately knew what I'd done, and was explaining to me and my family, sort of saying that it's your brachial plexus nerves. So this is the group of nerves that come straight from your spinal cord, that travel down your arm and into the muscles. And when your brain says open your hand or move your arm, it sends this signal to your muscles, and it contracts them. And basically, I pulled these nerves straight out of the spinal cord. So you've just basically interrupted the signal. And he was saying things like, you've permanently lost the use of your arm. He was talking about amputation. and basically saying your bike riding days are over and stuff. And it was just really weird. I guess I maybe didn't want to believe it, or just was also in shock and what have you. It was almost as if he was talking to the guy in the bed next to me. It took a while to sink in, to be honest. And and that sort of started the path to my sort of new life, if you like.
You were not annoyed at the time, but was you, when you remember, you can't remember a lot of the accident, but in those situations, do you get I use the word annoyed with yourself, thinking, did I make too much of a mistake here? Is this problem I've got now my own fault? And you end up beating yourself up about it, maybe? I don't know, but that's the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Over the years, I think I probably have done. I mean, accidents definitely happen. I'm certainly not the first person to crash to come off the bike, but it's easily done. But I've also got friends who've had similar bike crashes, and then they're no longer with us today as well. That's how I
take the good out of it. But
yeah, definitely. I've sort of do give myself a hard time as well over it. It was I was in control of the bike, and it was me who sort of had the accident. So
I imagine that's a battle at times when you obviously the next phase then of the rehab is hard enough, and then just because the mind works that way, often it ends up counterproductive and beating itself up when it probably doesn't need to.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did rehab go? How did rehab?
So in the immediate sort of time, I had some other injuries as well to deal with. I had some internal, like I'd ripped my spleen. I was quite badly bruised.
We've all done that, Chris.
Yes. So that was the thing that they were actually more concerned about at the time, because of losing blood internally, which obviously isn't good, because you can't just stick a plaster on it, type of thing. So the advice at the time, I mean, obviously I wasn't going anywhere, I was in hospital, but the advice was to try and sit it out and see if it'll, the bleeding will stop itself, type of thing. They can go in, and the option was to go in and remove it, or just to sort of suck it and see and hope that it kind of stems itself. It doesn't just bleed out. So, which is what we did at the time. I mean, at the time, I actually just wanted them to go and remove it, because I felt absolutely terrible. But anyway, we didn't. We just kind of let it do its thing, and thankfully, it actually healed itself. So I managed to, which is good, because I managed to keep my spleen, which is good for your immunity.
And all this was happening in Nobles on the island.
That was at the time, yeah. So I was in Nobles for about 2 weeks, I think it was, and then back home for another couple of weeks to sort of recover. Recovered for a bit longer than 2 weeks, but work at the time. I was working at the Isle of Man Creameries. They were really good, and they sort of said, when it's after another month or two, when it's time to come back to work, we'll move you into the offices, into the sort of administration side of things, because it was fairly clear that, one, I'd lost the use of an arm, and to do the job that I was doing, it was quite a physical thing at the time. I was working on the factory floor, needed both hands for that, really. So they moved me into the offices, and that was where I sort of started my career in the finance side of things. Because up until that point, I was a dairy worker, if you like. I mean, it was a good job. I enjoyed it, and but there was a lot of weekend work, lots of night shift work, and I just thought, I was trying to think, how am I ever going to get out of this sort of, this job that was working these horrendous hours, and then all of a sudden, bang, this accident happened, and it sort of, it was a fork in the road, if you like. It was a big lifestyle change, and
was that sort of during that initial start of rehab and maybe realizing you can't go back to the exact type of job? Was Were you then going through that? I need to assess what I'm doing here. I need to adapt to what I know and how I trained and what I do day to day. Was that kind of a thought process, or that sort of gradual as you were kind of dealing with each stage of that rehab?
I think it's sort of gradual at first. You know, it's all, there's an awful lot of information coming in from all angles, and you know, it's obvious that I mean, at that point also I was still hopeful that I was going to get some recovery back, because they didn't know at the time whether it would recover its you know, whether it would movement would come back or not. And I was actually sent to a hospital in London, Stanmore, which was where they specialise in this type of injury. And they did a nerve graft, a nerve repair on the damaged site after loads of tests and scans and all sorts. It was obvious that I'd actually completely pulled out these nerves from the spinal cord, which is the worst type of injury that you can have to your brachial plexus nerves. Some people damage them sort of further down the line, if you like, and they can be repaired. Whereas if you just unplug straight from the spinal cord, it's very difficult to sort of repair that. Anyway, they tried.
I take it you can't just put them back in that sense. You know, there's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much what they tried to do. I think they try and plug them back in, or they try and stitch the both ends together with some. They took good nerves from other places on the body and sort of did these grafts. But it's, you know,
is it a case of what they've kind of gone and lost that initial connection? That's the damage done in that sort of sense, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. And also, I think if you don't use your muscles within a certain time frame, I think they also atrophy. You know, they die back so much that even if you've got your nerve to work again, you're going to struggle to get those muscles to work again, type of thing. Which is why it was all there was like a 6-month time frame to where you had to get your surgery done to give yourself as best chance as possible for recovery. But I mean, we tried. You know, they did everything they could and all the rest of it. But it was a case of, right, we've done the surgery. You know, you're just going to have to go home and give it. You know, it's up to 5 years basically of the time that it takes for these nerves to grow, and then see whether you get any function back or not. Which is pretty much what happened. You know, I sort of went home and sort of tried to get on with life as normal, as best I could, and give it time. So that was sort of, as I say, it was another 5 years of my life type of thing to see what was going to happen. And unfortunately for me, sorry.
No, go on, Chris. Go on.
I was just going to say, yeah, unfortunately for me, in my case, it became apparent that the surgery wasn't going to work. You know, I was not going to get any recovery back. You know, after various meetings with the doctors and what have you across. But I can still remember this particular time, and it was like you know, they just basically spelt it out and said, look, you know, we're sorry, but you've permanently lost the use of your arm, and it's just a case of go and sort of go home and rebuild your life type of thing, get on with it. So yeah, it was just, as I say, it was another big sort of fork in the road. And you can, you know, you've got two options basically. You can either go and make it work, or go and, you know, sit at home all day and watch Jeremy Kyle and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, that's what I find interesting about your story, is that those are not, I don't think they're moments, immediate click moments, but they're moments where there's a massive amount of adversity, and you've got choices to make, which are in your control. Ultimately, you dealt a hand, whether people like it or not. You know, we're all dealt with hands at different times, and at that moment, or those moments, you're then going, right, how do I work around this? Basically, how am I going to work around this?
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
not sulking about it, but just, you know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
You dominate it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, at the time, I was absolutely, you know, it knocked me sideways. You know, I can remember breaking down outside the hospital and being devastated. You know, I'd gone from this sort of late 20s, 30-year-old, fairly fit young man to suddenly being this, you know, lost a limb, I mean, I don't think I probably haven't even touched on it, but the biggest part of this injury is actually what the nerve pain that I'm in. It's a chronic. I'm a chronic pain sufferer, and because of that, I've got to take medication full time. Still, 20 years later, I'm still taking medication for it, and that in itself has its own side effects. So just learning to manage it as best you can, and I suppose I'm lucky that I've got a good framework of friends and family around me, and I always get support and from everyone I meet, basically, which just helps you get on, deal with it, sort of thing.
So that support, how much did you push the boundaries of that when you decided to get a bike after all this?
Yeah, it was definitely mixed feelings, I suppose. My family could see, I still just had this. I can remember sitting at home and on a sunny Sunday, and just hearing people going out on the motorbikes for a blast around the Isle of Man, and that was really, really hard. I just thought I so much want to get back into it, but how am I going to do it? But also around about that time, it's getting like the internet was just sort of kicking off, and I found this charity on the internet, National Association for Bikers with a Disability, NABD. So I got in touch with those guys, and started to do a bit of research, and it became apparent that there was already quite a lot of motorcyclists who with a similar injury to me. They've lost the use of an arm or a limb, and there's all sorts of adaptations that you can do, and basically get them back out there, and get them doing the things that they really want to do and love to do. So that gave me quite a lot of hope, so I just sort of thought, if I start small and see how we go, sort of get my friends and family used to the idea that he's going back out on two wheels again. So yeah, I ended up buying a scooter off Paul Dedman in Ramsey, and he did the repair job, little adaptation on it, just to get the indicators moved over to the right hand side. It was a twist and go, so it was dead easy to ride, and yeah, it's sort of filled my sort of gave me that sort of thing again of being back out
that was your mentality very much of, after all this happening, that you want to be back on. As it's not, you didn't look at them and think it's an area you don't want to go near, bringing up memories of things that it was more, I still have this love for it, and however I can, I want to be doing it.
I think I didn't want this sort of negative side of this accident to be the end of something that I really love doing. I just thought, and I still had the in my mind the words of the doctor sort of saying, your bike riding days are over, in my head, and I just thought, I'm not having it. I'm just not having it. I know it can be done, and I'm pretty sure that I'm able to handle a bike, still with what I've got, type of thing.
When I compare that to riding a push bike, I think if I'm sure I could ride around one-armed on a push bike, wouldn't be very stable on it, but my immediate, obviously balance is a massive part of that process. Those first few rides, was that just all about the balance side of things, and just like you said, building up slowly, getting used to that?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that once you get the bike up and rolling, then you've got the sort of centrifugal forces of the wheels, which are going to keep the bike upright. Once you get up to a certain speed, the bike sort of goes in a straight line on its own, type of thing. So it's just basically getting the bike off from a standing start to moving, which was going to be the issue with a scooter. It's not so much of a problem because it's just twist and go. You don't have to worry about the clutch and changing gears, which is why I sort of went down the scooter road to start with. But that sort of kept me happy for about 18 months, and then I started to get the hankering for a real bike, and proper bike. And as I say, I'd done my research and was already finding out ways of getting around these issues.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that's basically that was what I ended up doing.
Yeah, you moved up to from twisting grip to a.
Yeah, I bought a 600, a Yamaha R6. Still got it in the garage, and I got in touch with a local engineer on the Isle of Man, a guy called Pete Moran, he's known for his sort of outside of the box thinking, if you like. He's mad on his motorsport, and he's a massive biker himself. So he was a good guy to go and see and chat. I went and had a few cups of coffee with him and sort of chatted about how we could go about getting me back up on a real motorbike sort of thing. This was, he had these massive big sheds which were full of these heavy industrial tooling equipment and machines and stuff. But I mean, yeah, if my way of thinking is we just keep it as simple as possible. I just basically need an extra lever on the right hand side, which is going to operate the clutch. And if I can change gear and get the bike rolling, then I'm pretty sure I can take care of the rest. And that's pretty much what we did.
And was it massively different then going out on once you get going on it? I appreciate the power is a separate question, but a 600 to a scooter is, once you get moving, is the general kind of weight distribution?
The weight was the big thing. It's obviously quite a lot heavier than the scooter. So just had to be mindful of the fact that there was an extra weight. And but thankfully I've got long legs, and so moving it around and when you're not actually going anywhere was fairly straightforward. But it was just a case of taking your time with it and just trying not to run before you can walk, sort of thing.
And all the time your wife's in the background rolling her eyes at you, I assume.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've caused them plenty of worry along the way, but I think they could also see how important it was
to you.
Yeah, to me and my sort of my well-being, if you like. I might have ended up with a lifelong disability, but it doesn't mean that just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you still can't achieve things. And I think that's that's always in the back of my mind. I don't sort of I don't take no very easily if there's something I really want to do. I just, there's always a way. There's more than there's always a way around these things, and so yeah, that's kind of where I went with this with my first bike. And
so then you start doing track days.
Not sort of straight away. I spent a year or so sort of going back to my old ways and meeting my friends and going out on a Sunday and having a ride around the TT course and all that sort of thing. So just got more and more used to the bike, got a bit more comfortable riding it and happier with it. And a group of friends decided that they were going to go away and do a track day at Alton Park, and did I want to go, sort of thing. And obviously I jumped at it. I think my main concern, because we rode to it as well on the bikes, we didn't take them in a van. I think my main concern was getting on and off the boat, the steam packet and just the ramp and stuff like that. But it was absolutely fine, to be honest. Once you go and once you give it a go, it was fine. But yeah, I got we went to Alton Park, and a company called No Limits ran the track day, and they had instructors on site. And so straight, first thing I went and had a chat with one of the instructors and just explained that I had this, I've got this disability, and I've just got one working arm, and they'd already had dealings with people in a similar situation, so they weren't fazed by it. So I asked this guy if he wouldn't mind just guiding me around, took me around. I'd sit behind him and he'd show me the lines on the track, sort of thing. So, which is what we did. You know, we started off in the novice, in the sort of slow group, if you like, and just did like half a dozen laps and sort of pulled in, and he was like, yeah, you're absolutely no worries at all. We ended up moving up into the next group, and you know, before you knew it, I was off riding around on my own type of thing, doing my own thing around the track, and just felt really good. You know, I think it was then that I just thought, do you know what? I think I could probably go and race now. I think that's I think I'll be all right. I won't be the fastest guy out there, but I think I can still, you know, handle a bike. And you know, I was only sort of thinking short circuits at the time. I mean, you know, the dream is to, for me, it was to properly race the TT course, but you know, that was an awful long way away. I just thought I'd go and have a go riding around Derby and, you know, around the short circuits first and see how it goes. So I got in touch with the ACU, the Auto Cycle Union, and sort of explained the situation. And they said, well, you know, what we need to do is get you out with an instructor, one of the ACU qualified instructors, and then he can assess you and sort of take it from there. That's what I did. I arranged to go and do a race school up at Derby, and one of the instructors there, he sort of took me around for a few laps and just sort of guided me basically. And after a couple of laps, we pulled in, and I sort of said, you know, so what do you think? You know, am I doing okay? And he was like, you're absolutely fine. You've got nothing to worry about. He sort of, you know, ticked all the boxes, and before you knew it, I had my own novice ACU race license, which meant I could ride around the short circuits, orange bib and all that, and sort of, which is what I did. I bought an old 600 off a mate of mine, and sort of joined in with the rest of the guys on the track. Sort of sat at the back on the grid, and just got stuck into it. It was a big eye opener at first. I mean, I thought I was reasonably quick, but then suddenly, you know, you're out on track with the sort of Dan Means, and you know, boys are on another level, obviously. And but they always gave me loads of respect. You know, they always gave me loads of room. There was never an issue. I think I always felt like I was treated normal, you know, quite, you know, like the same as everybody else. There was nobody was giving me any special treatment or anything like that, you know, which was just brilliant, you know.
And on that, sorry, you mentioned orange bib. Is that just to signify like when you're racing in the pack who novices are, or things like that? So the ones just to be all right, okay.
That's right. Yeah. It's just to give everybody the heads up as to who the new riders are, if you like. And you have to wear the orange bib for I think it's 10 races before you get a signature every race that you do. And once you've done 10, then you can take the orange bib off, which is what I did. And then, which at this point I'm starting to think about, you know, mixing with racers who are regularly doing the roads as well. You know, they're doing the Southern 100, they're doing the Grand Prix or the TT or whatever. And suddenly I'm starting to think, you know, is this actually going to be possible? Like, you know, could I? Well, first I've got to qualify. I've got to get myself a national license, which means you have to finish within a certain percentage of the race leaders. And that was going to be a problem at the time on the bike I had. I was nowhere near competitive enough. I found it was a little bit heavy for me, the 600 on the track, this particular one I had anyway. And it was a bit down on power, and I was just, plus it's really competitive in the 600 class. So I thought to be able to upgrade my license, I'm going to probably need to change class, the bike basically, which is what I did. At the time there was a new class coming out called a Super Twin, which are like they're a road bike, like a commuting bike, fairly cheap, and people were sort of buying them and upgrading them to race. And it was a new class to race in, that's what I did. I ordered a bike that was built for me by a company in Bristol called JHS Racing, and so they built me the bike over the winter, and sort of had this sort of brand new super twin bike to race the following year. And straight away I just gelled with it. The bike was easier to ride, wasn't quite as powerful, it was lighter, and just had better, like the brakes were better and the suspension. I just straight away got on with it, and pretty quickly I was already sort of finishing the races within the top 10%. So which meant I was acquiring the upgraded signature on my license. So I needed 10 of those then to get my national license. So that became the new sort of goal,
Next
if
goal,
you like. Yeah. So another sort of year or two of racing, and I got myself my national license.
And that was the time to apply for the Manx.
Yeah, sent off my application to the ACU for my mountain course license. So to get your mountain course license, you have to do so many races within a certain time frame, and even if you've done that, it's still not guaranteed that they'll give it you. Like I didn't know for sure if I was going to get this license or not until it arrived on through the letterbox about 4 weeks before the Grand Prix. So all of a sudden I had a load of work to do to get set up for the road race.
Yeah.
But
what was it like when that arrived through the door?
It was just amazing. I can just remember being, I think I probably ran down the hallway, shouting and screaming. I was absolutely buzzing. I was just delighted. It was just a lot of hard work, and I've sort of briefly brushed over it now whilst we're talking, but I suppose when I think back, there's a lot of work, a lot of expense as well. Thankfully, I had some good friends behind me as well, and had a couple of sponsors, and people helped me along the way. We actually had a fundraiser down at the Sulby Inn in the pub in Sulby, and it was a really good night. A load of friends came along, and we all had a load of beer and raised a load of money, and that sort of helped pay for my race expenses for the Grand Prix. This was 2012. It actually turned into a disaster. that Grand Prix, I sort of lined up on the start line for practice, my first practice, and set off, and immediately the bike didn't quite feel right. There's no way of testing the bike to how you ride around the TT course. You just can't get the same. It's not putting the same stresses on the bike when you ride around a short circuit, because you just on off the throttle all the time. Whereas around the TT course, you're just flat out for really long periods of time. And for whatever reason, it just kept the bike was running lean, and I just kept blowing engines. So this was during practice week, and to qualify for the race, you've got to do 6 laps of practice. Before I knew it, I'd sort of blown 2 engines up, and got to the end of practice week and completed about 2 laps. So I got pulled in to the office by the clerk of the course, and he basically just said, really sorry, and I think he knew that the journey I'd been on to get that far, and I think he looked about as gutted as I was. He just sort of said, sorry, but you're not going to be able to race. You haven't qualified, and that's kind of the end of it. So
still ultimately doing those laps during that period, or that practice thing. When you think about, or we talk about maybe that finishing that first lap, sort of initially setting off. I guess everyone always talks about going down Bray Hill for the first time. What was in your mind at those kind of moments? Because still there's amazing things I'd imagine going on there, irrespective of the not qualifying side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I can still remember. So your very first lap that you ever do is a guided lap, which you have to sort of follow the travelling marshals. They set you off in groups of 6. And they sit you in behind a travelling marshal and send you off down the road, and then the next group of 6 will come along. It was incredible. I probably can't even describe how the feeling of lining up on the TT start line, with all these lads around you, you've got a traveling marshal in front of you, you've got the whole of the TT course to yourself type of thing. There's crowds of people and cheering at the grandstand, and the tannoy's going off, and it's just immense. It's unbelievable. Your heart's absolutely pounding in your chest. You've got all this adrenaline just absolutely surging through your body.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, all your nerves are the start line and the waiting to set off. That's the most nervous you're going to be. And everybody says it. John McGuinness always says it. Sort of 10 seconds down the road, and all those nerves have gone. You're just so focused on the job that you're doing, you just forget about how nervous you are. Suddenly you've got this. It's a bit like being in a hornet's nest. You've got all these bikes around you. They're all we were all following the traveling marshal at the time, but you're overtaking somebody, or somebody's coming past you, or you're coming into these famous landmarks. The Quarter Bridge. You're coming into Braddon Bridge. When you flick through Braddon Bridge, you've got all those people sat on the bank in there, on the benches. It's just, I think I probably did have a bit of a tear in my eye, to be honest with you. It was just unreal.
And what I was, again, one of the amazing parts, I think, of the and maybe it's more amazing to me as, I've ridden a motorbike not very well, and the thought of going down Sulby Straight 130, 40, 50 mile an hour, I couldn't even think about holding on to someone else doing it, or let alone myself doing it, then let alone myself doing it with one arm. It just blows my mind how you can control the thing, let alone the balls.
Yeah.
Do it.
It's by the time you get to that level, personally, I'd spent, 5-6 years of racing. So and it's always in the back of my mind that I'm not there to win it. I'm just there to try and do as well as I can, as safely as I can. So by the time I got to that point, I'd learned a lot about the bike, about how to handle it, and plus there's little tricks that you can do. You put a bigger screen on the bike that you can tuck in behind, and I had these little extra sort of screens on the sides of the bikes as well, which just gives you that better wind flow, if you like. So you just have to tuck right in, and I basically use my legs, my knees to grip the tank, hold the bike with. It's difficult to explain. People always say, well, how do you do it? It's just, well, I don't know.
No, neither do I. It's just that, again, I go back to my only real reference point on a push bike and going downhill at 40 mile an hour, then taking one hand off to do anything's the kind of last resort thing, move your glasses off or anything. I'm doing 40 mile an hour. You're doing 140. So that ability to have that control and the power, obviously there's a lot of power in the legs there holding the bike. I guess there's a lot of power in the shoulder to keep a grip of that front end of the bike as well.
Yeah. Part of my training to race on the roads was when I got into cycling, to be honest. A good friend of mine, Julian Wood, who helped me along the way, he basically said, look, racing in the TT or the Grand Prix, it's all about endurance, and it's all about getting you comfortable, and it's about basically not using as little energy as possible, because it's a long, you're looking at an hour and a half race in the Grand Prix. It's four laps, it's 150 miles. So you need to build up your endurance and your strength. So that was when I started doing mountain biking. Not very well, I have to say, at first. But yeah, I need to say
help coordination though, isn't it? Because again, you're obviously off road and there's a lot going on. So that ability to balance and etc. is going
basically you're using it, the exact same muscles as what you're going to be using on racing a motorbike. So it was absolutely spot on, fitness wise. I built, as you say, I built up my top half just from mountain biking and trying to get the bike over obstacles and also balance the thing. And plus actually pedaling the thing up hills, you know, you're improving your cardiovascular fitness as well. And it was also good fun as well. I really enjoyed it. You know, it's good for the head just to get out there and get some physical exercise in. But yeah, so I got myself as fit as I could basically, and it was all about just being fit enough to safely get through 4 laps. That was the main aim. And also, I mean, as I said before, I wasn't there to sort of win it, if you like, but I wanted to do as best as I could. And my real goal was to try and get 100 mile an hour. That was like the sort of pinnacle, if you like. That was my top aim. So my very, very early first few laps, you know, sort of low 90 mile an hour average speed. So I had a little bit of work to do, but it certainly wasn't.
Not a million miles away.
Yeah. But
can't imagine that, man. You know, doing 90 mile an hour laps with one hand. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Do you know, I never felt. I mean, it always felt always well in control. I was never like riding well outside my abilities. I had a couple of little hairy moments, but nothing too bad. You know, I just, as I say, I just kept well within my limits, and just you can't force the speed to come, especially around the TT course. You know, that's when mistakes happen. So you've got to really, you just got to relax and let the speeds come to you. Just bit, you know, bite little small chunks off, bit by bit, and chip away at it, and eventually, well, I've not really. So 2012 was the year where I had a load of mechanical problems. Didn't qualify, but went back. We came up with a plan to come back the following year and tackle it again. So that's what we did. 2013, we basically came back. We had did a lot more work to the bike.
This is all new 400, isn't it?
No, this was the Super Twin.
So sorry, I always think Super Twins is 400s, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they were in the same class. Yeah, no, you're right actually. But so they're still on the Super Twin. But we did a load of improvements on it over the winter. Had the engine rebuilt and didn't go too mad on the tuning, just for reliability basically. But we came up with some electronic changes to the bike, which my friend Julian Wood, he sort of came up with these ideas. He came from a motocross background, and he knew about this clutch system, this recluse clutch, which would enable the bike to sit running, ticking over in first gear without the clutch in. So if you like, it becomes a twist and go, but it's a proper motorbike. So we did that to it, which worked brilliantly. And we also fitted something called a blip shifter to it, which allowed me to change down gears without using the clutch. I already had a quick shifter, which is the opposite, so that you can go up the box without the clutch, but I could also change down now as well. So it was just little things that were giving me an easier time. You know, I wasn't constantly having to pull the clutch lever in and change gear like that. So all these little things that we did, they all added up to the bike was perfect.
Can any racer put those electric shifting on, or do they, or are they all on manual?
Most race bikes have got a quick shifter on them. Some people do also have these downshifters on them as well, but they wouldn't put the recluse clutch system on them. I wouldn't have thought. I guess it probably leaves them open to too much chance of having a problem down the road sort of thing. Yeah.
And if it was like quicker and easier, you know, I'm again thinking of cycling where we have the DIs, or you know, your electronic shifting compared to manual shifting, we say cables. So just wondering if it was more, you know, better to have them on anyway, or if people were still having the more traditional shifting system, should we say?
Yeah, I think because it's something that's not being done well, I don't think it's ever been done before, what we did to the bike. So then it means that there's no sort of, the reliability side of things comes into question. And I guess if somebody wants to build a bike to race around the TT course, that any sort of chances of having a problem with the reliability side of things, they're just not going to take the risk, I don't think. So yeah, whether it's something that might come in years to come, I don't know.
Kind of adapting to your circumstances though, isn't it? I remember years ago about, was it Robert Dunlop after his big accident? He had his clutch. Was it somewhere else on the bike? Yeah,
he had a similar injury. Well, he still had the use of his arm and hand, but it was limited. It wasn't as good as what it should be. And I think he had his clutch lever moved also onto the other side. I can't remember which side he was damaged now, but he either had a thumb. Did he have a thumb brake and a
thumb brake? I think I'd heard. Yeah, actually. No.
Yeah, he did do something like that. Yeah, definitely. Because I can remember seeing his bike in the Southern 100 in the pits there.
Nicking bits off.
So yeah. I mean, it's amazing what people can come up with.
It's just adapting, isn't it, to the circumstances? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So that 13, then you qualified, went through qualification, qualified.
Yeah, that was just the dream year, to be honest. Everything went absolutely perfect.
And did you do a 100-mile-an-hour lap in qualifying?
Yeah, I started off again sort of a low 90-mile-an-hour lap on the very first lap in practice week, and just gradually built up. And quite quickly I was pushing sort of 98 mile an hour, and we still had a few days practice left. So I thought, it's definitely on the cards. It was just a case of, as I said before, you can't push it. You've got to just kind of relax and just let it come to you. And sure enough, by the end of practice week, I was nudging 100. I think I was nudging 101 by the end of practice week. So that was just.
What was that feeling, that first lap of over 100, and kind of, because again, listening to the story, there's these kind of goals you set yourself, whether it's getting just back on the bike and getting off the scooter onto the next bike and so forth. Yeah. Obviously, that 100 was one of those massive goals.
It was, yeah. I was blown away. Amazing, brilliant. It was kind of. It was a bit surreal. It was almost like it's. I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but I was absolutely, over the moon by the whole thing, by the whole achievement, what we'd achieved. It wasn't, and yes, I'm riding the bike, but also again, I had this sort of, my brother was helping, my even my wife had her overalls on in the pits, and my mate Julian and Jock, they were all on hand and all doing all their bit to sort of, get the job done, if you like, over the fortnight, and it was just a great feeling of teamwork and just awesome. Yeah.
For my own interest, when you didn't qualify the year before, when you come back second year, logic would tell me you're not a newcomer because you've been there a year before, but because you didn't qualify, do you wear a bib the next year or not? That's more.
Yeah, you're right. So because I'd not finished, I'd not qualified in the practice week of the first year I did. I'm still a newcomer.
Right.
So I was classed as a newcomer in the second year as well.
Right. Okay.
Because I'd not qualified and I've not done a race. But by the time you qualify and you line up for the newcomers race, you do away with the bib. Then you don't have to wear it because you're all newcomers anyway.
So let's chat about that race. You're on the start line. I've been up there, being good enough to get tickets and wander around, and the atmosphere is unreal. I could only imagine pooping my panties sat on that start line, rolling slowly forward, watching people get the tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think I got a lot of sleep that night. And I can remember we got, I got there. I got to the grandstand early in the morning. It's just electric. It's this. You've got the sound of all the bikes warming up. You've got the smell of the race fuel. You've got people dashing here, there, and everywhere. You've got the tannoy going off. as you say, eventually you'll move to the start line, where you take your position. I can't remember where I was now. I think I started off in about 12th or something like that. So you're in a queue down Glen Crutchley Road, and as you said, you know the bikes are gradually moving forward. Your heart feels like it's going to absolutely explode out your chest with the amount of adrenaline you've got running through your body. By the time you get to, I think it's 3 bikes before the start line, that's the moment where all your teammate, your team has to leave you. You're basically on your own at that point. And I can just feeling so emotional at that point. I can feel it now. Yeah, almost. It's just, I just can't explain it. Very, very emotional, and obviously heart pounding, sort of just unreal. It's just a buzz.
Kind of emotions are they? Of well, I don't know. What would they be? Aside from adrenaline, is it? I've got here. I've been pushing to get to this very point for probably. I
think I had absolutely. I think I had everything rushing through my mind. As you say, the journey from my accident to those years of uncertainty about what was I going to ever recover, and then the moment of finding out that this is how things are going to be, and so it's just a case of getting on with things and then just chipping away and to the point of being lined up on the start line of the Grand Prix. It's unbelievable. I still find it hard to believe now. I honestly do that we managed to achieve it. It's something it's never been done before. Every time we went out and tried something on the bike, it's something that's we didn't have a manual for it. There's nobody nobody to say, oh yeah, this is how you do it, and this is what we did, and that. I basically had to sort of make it up as I went along, type of thing, as safely as I can. But yeah, so it was just very emotional, but also unbelievable. Just amazing.
Yeah.
So eventually your teammates that have to go and sort of take their positions away from the start line, and before you know it, you're lining your front wheel up on the start line, and there's a man standing on a little box in front of you with a flag, a Manx flag, and you've got the guy in the overalls with his hand on your shoulder, and there's a 10-second countdown in front of you coming down, and I think it gets to 5, and that's when he starts to sort of give you the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you get the pat on the shoulder, and
I could only imagine start on that start line because you got that view down past the grandstand, down Glen Crutchley Road. It's just not, the guy who set off in front of you has disappeared over the horizon, and you just, I don't know, it must just be so surreal. Yeah.
It is, because it goes from all you can hear is the guy in front of you, his motorbike, and him setting off, the high revs, and off he goes, and then you have a few seconds of it's almost completely silent.
Yeah, and
it's just because you've got earplugs in as well, but it's just mad. It's unbelievable.
The TT video that was out, I don't know, 15 years ago now, the start of that has that quietness before the roar, and I think that, I don't know because I'm not a biker, but I guess that how it plays out, where it's just this quietness and then this roar of the bike as it sets off, and I imagine it's a bit like that. I don't know.
Very much so. Very much like that. It goes from being completely silent to just like an explosion.
And then there's loads of stuff going past you so fast.
Everything's coming at you. Your senses, you're having to muscle the bike around. You all you've got is the engine noise and the wind rush noise in your head, and everything's flashing by, and but you've just got to basically it's everything that you've learned in practice week, you've just got to put into into place. It's 4 laps of practice. That's how I just kept telling myself, it's just 4 laps of practice. It's what you've already done. Just get into it, just relax, be smooth, not take well, say take your time, but just keep within your limits. Don't make any mistakes. And
you hear bikers talking about thinking a few corners ahead, or how was your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much that. You're so you're going off landmarks all the time. You've learned you've learned all the tipping in points. I'd already been, as I'd already been riding around the TT course for years up until that point. The course does change quite a lot when you've got both sides of the road to use. But even so, I still knew what was coming next. I can remember playing the PlayStation game for years as well up until that point, just to sort of help your memory really. And so yeah, you just look at going off landmarks all the time. You're coming up to the quarter bridge, you already know you've got to be heavy on the brakes and get the bike slowed up for that point. On the first lap, you've got a full tank of fuel, so the bike handles totally different to what you used to riding around on the short circuit. You just have a low fuel level. But it's just a case of hitting your markers. Hit your turning in point, your braking points. Just ride as smooth as you can.
Before we get onto that four laps, it was just a quick general question. That Joey's where you had the accident, and then racing and those times going through there. Certainly the initial few times after your accident, was your mind never? Did you ever drift back to I ate this effing corner?
It definitely was a sort of trigger of the memory each time I went through it. I don't think I ever hated it.
No, right.
But I think I felt as though I hadn't let the accident win, if you like. It's not beaten me, each time. Difficult to explain, but I mean, there's various points on the TT course where I've lost friends as well, and every time I went sort of past one of those sites, I'd sort of give them a shout in my helmet, and just sort of hope they're looking, hope they're looking down on me and sort of keeping me safe type of thing. But yeah, no, it wasn't a corner I hated. It's just something I knew I had to get through. I actually enjoy it. I still enjoyed riding. The mountain course is every corner's brilliant, to be honest with you. But no, I was never sort of phased by it. Yeah.
I remember chatting to.
Are there any corners that were more difficult after the accident? As in, I don't know, the makeup of them that you had to approach differently because of the use of one arm.
I would say fast changes of direction. So, say coming through Kirkmichael, there's some. You hardly tell the corners really in the car, but at speed you're flat out through Kirkmichael pretty much. Just before Rencullen, just before the petrol station, you're going from you go yellow line. So, and you just the muscle in the bike from one side to the other. It takes a hell of a lot of effort. Again, everything's the rotating forces of the wheels. They're all fighting to keep the bike in a straight line. So you've got to fight against that. Also, like Quarry Bends is another fast change of direction type corner. So they're difficult. Also, I would say sort of your stop-start corners, like coming into the Nook. That was, the old road that it's not used now as a public road, but it's part of the TT course. That's always really difficult as well, because you're coming down from, fast speeds from coming down the mountain, and then suddenly you've got to get the bike anchored up, and you've got to pretty much, it's almost it's probably more than a 90-degree turn. You've got to try and muscle the bike around there. So yeah, they are difficult, but they're also just part of what you've got to do.
What about Black Bridge? You get some time over that?
Yeah, I love Black Bridge. I think I was always a bit. I always jumped it, but I was always. I live in Ballaugh. That's where I'm from, so I was always a bit cautious of. Didn't want to make a mess of it, because I knew somebody I knew would be one of my mates would be watching me or somebody like that. But yeah, no, I used to love. I loved it all. So people say, what's your favorite part of the TT course? And I love all of it, to be honest with you. I'd say from the start line all the way around to the start line again, you know, the whole thing is amazing.
I'd imagine the bit after Ginger Hall there, because it's pretty bouncy around there, isn't it?
Big time. Yeah, that's difficult. Again, you've got to grip the bikes. You've got to grip the bike with your knees, and it's that bumpy. It almost feels like your eyeballs is getting shaken around in your head, and your vision can get quite blurry because of that. But you know, during practice week, you've got to sort of you've got to get the bike set up to handle. You know, that's one of the main places that you've got to get the bike to set up for. Well, for me, it was anyway. So it was a case of just softening up the suspension and trying to get it to track over the bumps as smoothly as possible. Before I did the Grand Prix, I'd actually raced around the Southern 100 course, which was an excellent way of like preparing me and the bike to ride the roads. And the Southern 100 course is like it's obviously shorter than the TT course, but it's because it's so stop-start. It's quite physically demanding, and that was a very good way of sort of getting my head around how am I going to ride around the TT course, sort of thing. So I was sort of prepared for, you know, handling the bike through places like that. But yeah, it was certainly difficult, but managed to do it.
So go back to that race to 2012, 4 laps, which again, it's just mind blowing that you can, let alone do the speeds, let alone hold on to the bike for 150 mile.
So we'd come up with a plan. I was going to have to pit stop. So 4 laps. I was using about 7 litres a lap, and the maximum fuel size that fuel tank size that you're allowed is 24 litre. So it wasn't a case of just filling it up and do 4 laps. I was going to have to stop at some point. So the strategy was that I was going to pit stop after the first lap. So I would set off at the beginning of the race with a full tank, do 1 lap, which is going to use 7 litres of fuel, which meant a quick splash and dash pit stop. So my mate Julian, he just basically had to put 7 litres of fuel in. My brother would clean my visor. My wife handed me the drink, and I was basically in and out in about, I don't know, 25 seconds or something like that. It was quick. And then it was a case of, right, the bike's tank's full. I've got 3 laps. I'm just going to have to go out and just get into a rhythm. So that was how it went. By the 3rd lap, I was starting to get sort of quite tired. I think on the last lap, I ran a bit wide around Sulby Bridge. Just it's mentally as well. It's the concentration level is you know, unbelievable, and it does start to you do get quite tired by the end of it. Certainly mentally as well as physically. But yeah, I just tried to keep it as smooth as I could and just get around.
Finished it, a few 100-mile-an-hour laps in there.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. I definitely had tears in my helmet at the end of that race. And not only had I got a finish, I'd also finished within a certain percentage of the race winner, which meant I won a replica, which is what this.
Yeah, so those who are on the video, watching it on YouTube, it's on the video there. Yeah, they were very after pieces of kit.
Yeah. So you know, not only did I win a replica, I also ended up winning what they call the Spirit of the Manx Award, which is something they award to
come over
single per. yeah. Spirit of the Come Over Award. So yeah, I had to go up on stage at the Villa Marina. That was the following year. I got called up and actually won the award for the whole achievement of the fortnight. So yeah, it was just absolutely brilliant. And the feedback and the support from not just the local, well, especially the locals, but just I had people from all over the world sending me messages, you know, just saying, unbelievable achievement, and people were saying they couldn't believe what I'd achieved, what they've witnessed. And I also, what was good was I had a lot of people who with the same injury as me, the brachial plexus injury, around the world, just getting in touch and
That's nice.
and sending me thanks. And just goes to show what people can achieve if they really put their mind to it. And,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I think that's what the whole thing's about, really. Just not giving up, and it doesn't mean the end of, just because you've got a life-changing injury. My life has changed, but a lot of it for the better, to be honest with you. I don't think I'd have been, I wouldn't have been in this position if I'd not had my accident. I wouldn't have. I don't think I'd have gone racing, or had
and the knock-on effect, like you say, people contacting you, reaching out, being inspired by what you're doing. That's out of a pretty crappy situation, a lot of positivity, not
right.
just for yourself, but for the ripple effect of that as well. So 2014, you came back again for more.
So I thought I still sort of wanted to I thought I've got a bit more to give in the sport, and definitely thought I could go a bit quicker,
like all bikers.
As you do. So I thought I could do improve my times, and still wanted to get out there and race on the TT course. So I did another year of short circuit racing. Built my license back up for my mountain course license for the following year, and entered the 2014 Grand Prix on the same bike, same people around me, and just have another go at it, basically. I'd done the Southern 100 also that year, and I think the Southern's about 4 or 5 weeks before the Grand Prix, and I actually ended up crashing out of the Southern. I got tangled up in somebody else had a crash in front. It was so the Southern 100's a mass start. Everybody sets off together. You all sort of funnel into the first corner, and there's a bit of argy-bargy going on, as you'd expect, but somebody in front actually came down, which caused somebody else to crash as well, and I ended up getting tangled up in bikes and what have you that was sliding along the road, and I came down as well. Sort of damaged my bike, and also knackered my knee as well, my right knee. So I had to sort of pulled out the Southern, but I was still confident I could race the Grand Prix. So we got the bike prepped up. We had a few weeks to get the bike sorted out and try and get my knees healed up as best as I could, and entered the Grand Prix that year. And we just reverted back to 2012 with all the mechanical problems again. Turned into an absolute nightmare, to be honest. It blew up a couple of engines, and same sort of thing. I ended up getting towards the end of practice week, and I'd only done like 1 or 2 laps, and ran out of budget, ran out of engines, and it was just, that was it really. I just had to, I didn't qualify, had to pull out, and I was devastated. But I also felt a little bit like, well, at least I've already achieved it. I've done it the year before. So it was bad, but it wasn't like the 2012 year where I'd not qualified, and also felt like I'd let everybody down that year, to be honest with you. But so anyway, that was the final go at the Grand Prix I had. I did 1 more short circuit race that year around Derby, which actually went really well. Really enjoyed it. But I can remember coming home and just thinking, I think I'm done now. I think that's, I've probably pushed things as far as I can at home as well. The wife's sort of given me the, you said you were, you've achieved your dream, and now perhaps it's time to let it go, sort of thing. And it's a difficult one to argue, especially with the risk and the financial sort of strain as well. I just thought, do you know what? I think it's probably a good time just to knock it on the head. So that's really what I did. I've still got my bikes now in the garage, so I've not quite let go of them, but I've not ridden on them for a number of years now.
And the bike you raced down there still?
Yeah, it's the bikes. Yeah, my race bike's there, and the 600, the first 600 I bought, the road bike, that's still in the garage as well.
I'll have to come for a look at them. I do like them.
Yeah.
So since then, we came across you, we being Matty and I, sort of, you're obviously in the greatest cycling club on the planet, and you obviously started doing a lot of cycling. So is that kind of what you do now, sports-wise, mainly?
Yeah. So as, I'd already got into cycling to sort of build my fitness to race around the TT course, and to be, by 2014, where things had started to go wrong again with the bike, I was already starting to get more pleasure and out of the physical exercise and just getting out on my push bike. I was really enjoying it. I was doing quite a lot of mountain biking, and also got into the road cycling as well. As you say, it was joined the Manx Biking Wheelers, and I can honestly say that sometimes when I go out and race a push bike, I'm probably getting about as much buzz as what I was getting when I was flying down Glencrutchy Road flat out. It's I love it. It's great. But it also it's that well-being as well. It just kind of just to go out for a ride. It helps me deal with things physically as well. I've brushed on the fact that I've got I'm in pain most of the time, and just to do some physical exercise, it releases that sort of natural endorphins, that the painkillers, that and also just for the mind as well. It just makes you feel much better.
I think that can sometimes be lost as well. We talk about those sort of achievements and those goals you've set yourself, but all in the background of this is this noise and pain that's going on. Body and the mind.
It's I've had to learn to deal with that, and I suppose a lot of it I just kind of deal with it myself. Some people might think I'm a bit quiet at times, but it's usually just because I have to kind of slow everything down in my mind, and just try and get on top of this pain. And it does weigh you down as well. It's by the end of the day, you're pretty tired just from fighting what's going on internally, sort of thing. As well as the medication I'm on, they've all got sort of sedative type qualities to them as well. It all sort of has its effect on you. But I also know that I can still do pretty well on the push bike or whatever else it is I put my mind to.
And you mentioned you're on a waiting list to try and get a bit of help.
Yeah, so I've been receiving some treatment from the Walton Neurological Centre in Liverpool, and there's some surgery that I've sort of decided that I'd like to go for. It's something that it was always an option, but there are some side effects to it, and because it's spinal cord surgery, it's
dangerous area.
Yeah, there's chances of some side effects that you don't want. Can be quite high, if you like. So I feel like, because I've already a lot of my goals and things that I wanted to achieve, I've managed to sort of I managed to do those, and now I think it's probably a good time to sort of face what's going on and see if we can't get if the surgery is successful, hopefully it means I can sort of get off this medication and
take the pain away.
Yeah, hopefully, or even if it just reduces it, it's definitely a risk that's worth taking now, I think. There's another motorcycle racer I know he's recently had it, and it's been successful for him. He's gone from being in severe pain to almost pain-free from it. So if I can get that sort of outcome, then I'll be made up. But with the crazy stuff that's going on in the world now, the coronavirus has put a bit of a stop on that surgery now. I'm on the waiting list, but when I'm
everything just slows down, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they've got to basically keep the hospital beds free for people who are not well at the moment. So, which is, I can accept that. That's absolutely fine. I'll just crack on, and I've already dealt with it for 20 years. So another year or two, it's fine.
It's I should have said that at the start of the part of the reason for doing the podcast remotely for between us all was we're still in lockdown. Who knows, this is going out probably in 3 weeks, and who knows where we'll be then and what will be going on. So we should have said at the outset that's part of the reason of doing it remotely.
That's right.
Strange times.
It is very crazy, but it's what you've got to do, isn't it? I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming.
No,
not at
all.
I'm now obviously at home, and we've got 3 separate workstations set up. There's me, my daughter, and my wife. We're all working from home, as most people are now, and it's just what you've got to do, isn't it?
Again, adapting, isn't it? Adapting to circumstances.
That's right.
You're good at that, so you'll be all right.
Well,
thanks. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I've still got my bike set up on the turbo in the garage, so at least I can.
Most important thing. Yeah, exactly. Get your own space. Matty will understand that. So thanks. Thanks for coming on and chatting to us. Like I say, I think your story's it's not. I think it is. It is absolutely amazing what you achieved.
Thank you.
Just blows my mind. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Absolute pleasure. No, thank you for inviting me along, and just like to say a quick thanks to everybody for all the support that I've received along the way. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
Matty, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, the usual. So wherever you're listening or hopefully watching, like, subscribe, share, and leave those 5-star reviews, pretty please. On social media, Facebook, we're the M-Word Podcast. Twitter, Manx Sports Pod. On Instagram, we are the M-Word IOM. And as Martin is showing you, we have a fancy little
phone case. It is, Matty.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Thanks again. Thanks for letting us get into your ears. It's word out from Martin.